My name is Sarah Miller, and I live in a small, red brick house on the corner of Maple Street, in Brooklyn, New York. It's not a big house, but it's warm, and it feels alive, especially on days like today. The smell of chocolate cake fills the kitchen, balloons crowd the ceiling, and the faint sound of pop music hums from the speaker on the counter. My daughter, Ava, turns 8 today. I can hardly believe it. It feels like yesterday when I first held her tiny body against my chest, her skin soft and deep brown, her little fingers curling around mine. She was perfect then, and she still is now. James, my husband, is in the kitchen, slicing strawberries for the cake. He always insists on adding something fresh to everything, even dessert. He's the calm one, steady, patient, the kind of man who can smile even when life throws a storm. He looks up and grins at me. "She's going to remember this day forever," he says, his voice soft. I nod, though there's a small ache in my chest I can't quite name yet. "I hope so," I reply, trying to smile back. The living room looks like a fairy tale. Pink, gold, and white streamers hang from the light fixture, and the big window is covered in stickers Ava chose herself, stars, hearts, and one crooked unicorn. The couch is buried under piles of colorful wrapping paper, and the floor is littered with glitter that I already know I'll still be sweeping up weeks from now. In the middle of it all, Ava twirls in her yellow dress, laughing as her braids swing behind her. Her laugh is the kind that fills a room, bright and unshakable. But even as I watch her, something tugs at me. I glance toward the coffee table. There, among all the brightly wrapped presents, sits one that makes my stomach twist. It's wrapped in silver paper, tied neatly with a red ribbon. The handwriting on the tag is painfully familiar. To Ava, from Grandma and Grandpa. My parents. I hadn't seen or spoken to them in nearly 2 years. The last time we talked, it ended with my mother's voice cold and cutting over the phone. "Sarah, you've made your choice. You can't expect us to pretend it's normal." I had hung up before she could say more. Still, I sent them Christmas cards, photos of Ava, and little updates they never answered. Part of me had hoped that time could melt the ice between us. I thought maybe they would come around. Maybe love would win in the end. But that hope feels small now, sitting in shiny silver paper. "Mom, can I open this one?" Ava's voice pulls me back. She's pointing at the silver box, her eyes wide with curiosity. Around her, our friends are chatting, their children playing tag between the chairs. The house is filled with warmth and laughter. It feels like the right moment, but my heart sinks. I force a smile and nod. "Of course, sweetheart. That one's from Grandma and Grandpa." She grins, tearing the paper with quick hands. A white envelope slips out from under the ribbon. I reach down and pick it up, recognizing my mother's delicate handwriting. I shouldn't read it now, not in front of everyone. But something inside me says I need to. My fingers tremble slightly as I open the envelope. The card is simple, a snowman and a Christmas tree printed on the front. It's not even a birthday card. My eyes drop to the words written inside, and I feel the air leave my body. "We can't leave our son's house Christmas party for your black daughter." For a second, everything freezes. The sound of laughter fades. The only thing I can hear is the pounding of my heart. I blink once, twice, hoping I've read it wrong. But the words don't change. They're there, in ink, from the people who raised me. My throat burns. I can feel my face growing hot, and my fingers clutch the card until it bends. Meanwhile, Ava lifts the lid of the box. Inside lies a pale, porcelain doll with golden hair and wide blue eyes. Taped to the front of the box is a note written in the same neat hand. Maybe this will help her feel more normal. Ava stares at the doll, her smile fading. She looks up at me, confusion clouding her face. "Mom," she whispers, "what's this?" The world tilts. I can see the hurt forming in her eyes, and I hate that she's old enough to understand. Even a little. My hands shake as I kneel beside her. "You don't have to keep it," I say softly. "You don't have to like it." She sets the doll down carefully, as if it might break, then takes a step back. "I don't want it," she says, her small voice trembling. "Neither do I." I take the box, walk straight to the kitchen, and drop it into the trash. When I come back, Ava is standing still, her shoulders small and tense. I pull her into my arms. "You are perfect," I whisper into her hair. "You don't ever need to be anything else." Outside, the snow begins to fall, soft and quiet against the window. The house feels smaller now, but in my arms, my daughter feels like the whole world. After everyone had gone quiet, I could feel every heartbeat in the room, including my own. It was as if the music, the laughter, the smell of cake, all of it had frozen midair. I stood there, holding that hateful card, wondering how two people who once taught me about kindness could write something so small, so cruel. Ava looked up at me, her little hands still clutching the corner of the silver box, her eyes big and unsure. I wanted to take that moment from her, to erase it, but time doesn't move backward, and words can't be unsaid once written. I slipped the card into my pocket, forcing my face to soften. "It's okay, baby," I said, bending down so she could see my smile. "You don't have to open anything else right now. Why don't we play your favorite song?" My voice came out gentle, but my throat burned. She nodded quietly, still glancing at the trash can where the doll now rested beneath paper plates and leftover pizza crusts. James must have seen the tremor in my hands because he crossed the room and placed his palm on my shoulder. "Sarah," he whispered, "are you all right?" No, I wasn't. But the last thing I wanted was for Ava to see me fall apart. I took a deep breath and nodded. "We're fine. Just keep the kids happy." I didn't need to explain. His eyes told me he understood everything without another word. That's one of the reasons I love him. He knows when silence speaks louder than anything else. I picked up the remote and pressed play. Music burst through the speakers again, loud and happy, like nothing had happened. The children screamed and ran back to their games, their laughter slowly filling the air again. For a moment, it almost worked. Almost. But I couldn't stop hearing my mother's voice in my head, reading those words aloud in that careful, judgmental tone she always used when she thought she was being honest. "We can't leave our son's house Christmas party for your black daughter." 8 words. 8 poisonous little words that built a wall between us forever. As the minutes ticked by, I stood by the kitchen window, pretending to tidy up. Outside, snow fell gently on the street, covering the rooftops in white. Cars passed slowly, headlights glowing like ghosts. It should have been a beautiful day, a day for joy. But all I could feel was shame, anger, and a deep sadness that my parents would never know the girl they had just insulted. Ava, however, was stronger than I expected. 20 minutes later, she was back to laughing with her friends, wearing a paper crown and singing off-key with a mouthful of frosting. She's resilient, I thought. Braver than I ever was at her age. But I could still see the moment replaying behind her eyes whenever her laughter paused, a flicker of confusion, a question she hadn't found words for yet. At exactly 3:39 p.m., my phone buzzed on the counter. I picked it up absent-mindedly, expecting another birthday text from one of James's coworkers. But when I saw the sender, I froze. Maria Hernandez, Miller Family Trust. Maria was our attorney in Manhattan, a woman with sharp suits and sharper focus. She handled the complicated web of legal documents that tied my daughter's name to a fortune she didn't yet know existed. The money wasn't mine. It came from David, my late husband. David and I had been separated when he died, but not divorced. Despite everything, he'd left his fortune in a trust for the child he would never meet. What no one, not even my parents, knew was that Ava was legally and irrevocably named as the sole heir of that trust. When all the final papers were settled, the amount came to $1 billion. $1 billion. I opened the email slowly, scanning the words. Dear Mrs. Miller, we are pleased to inform you that the court has officially approved the final transfer of assets to Ava Miller. The Miller Family Trust, valued at approximately $1 billion, is now active and secured under her name. I stared at the screen, my breath caught halfway in my throat. 27 minutes after my parents' note, 27 minutes after they declared they couldn't attend a party for their black granddaughter, the universe decided to show its hand. James walked up behind me, reading over my shoulder. His eyebrows rose, and a small smile tugged at his mouth. "Well," he said quietly, "I hope they enjoy their Christmas party. They just turned their backs on a billionaire." I laughed then, softly at first, then louder. It wasn't the kind of laugh that comes from joy, but from disbelief, relief, and something close to victory. I turned toward the living room, where Ava was giggling with frosting on her nose. My parents had chosen hate over love, but they had no idea that the child they had rejected would grow into someone whose worth no amount of money could measure. And in that moment, I decided, they would never know. It's strange how quickly life can change. 1 minute, you're standing in a living room full of balloons and frosting, feeling like your heart has been split open by a sentence written in blue ink. 27 minutes later, you're holding a phone that tells you your child, your beautiful, brave little girl, is now an heir to $1 billion. I remember staring at that email like it wasn't real, as if the numbers might rearrange themselves into something smaller, something I could understand. But no. The words stayed the same, clean and official. Ava Miller, $1 billion. I sank into a chair, the edge of my phone digging into my palm. James stood behind me, his hand on my shoulder. He didn't say anything at first. Neither of us did. The laughter of children echoed from the next room, faint and innocent. The world was still spinning, but I felt like I had stepped out of it for a moment, into some quiet place where disbelief and awe lived side by side. When I finally spoke, my voice came out small. "She has no idea," I said. "She's out there playing with cake on her face, and she has no idea what just happened." James nodded, his thumb tracing small circles against my shoulder. "That's how it should be," he said softly. "She doesn't need to know now. Let her be 8. Let her be happy." I knew he was right, but as I looked toward the living room, toward Ava and her friends and the pile of opened gifts, I couldn't help thinking about the contrast between the two worlds colliding in that single hour. The cruel words from my parents and the unimaginable gift left by a man long gone. The shame that came from blood and the grace that came from love. I stood up and went to the window. Outside, the snow had grown heavier, blanketing the sidewalks and the parked cars. Across the street, Mr. and Mrs. Gomez were shoveling their driveway, laughing as they worked. Their lights glowed yellow through the snowfall, making everything look softer, kinder. I pressed my forehead against the cold glass and whispered, "Maybe this is what justice looks like." Behind me, James chuckled quietly. The universe has a strange sense of timing. 27 minutes, I said, half to myself. That's all it took. 27 minutes between their hate and this miracle. I thought of my mother's letter again, of her words like a slap to my heart. "We can't leave our son's house Christmas party for your black daughter." They had no idea who they were talking about. No idea that the little girl they dismissed so easily would one day carry a legacy greater than any they could imagine. I sat down again, opening the email one more time, reading it slowly. There was a PDF attachment, confirmation from the court, notarized and sealed. The numbers on that page didn't look real. $1 billion. My breath caught when I saw it. It was overwhelming, yes, but not because of greed. It was because of possibility. What Ava could do with it. What she could build. What she could become.
But right now, she was still just a child.
My child. A little girl who still asked for bedtime stories and refused to eat broccoli unless I called them mini trees. I closed the document and set the phone face down on the table. "Sarah," James said, "maybe we should keep this quiet for a while. Let's talk to Maria first. Make sure everything's protected."
"Of course," I said.
"I'm not telling anyone, especially not them." He nodded. "Good. They don't deserve to know." For the rest of the afternoon, I moved through the motions of the party, my mind buzzing like a storm. I helped the kids decorate cupcakes, wiped icing from Ava's chin, and smiled for photos. But every now and then, I caught myself glancing at her and feeling the weight of it all. How her small shoulders now carried a legacy I couldn't have dreamed of. How she was still laughing, blissfully unaware of how cruel and how generous the world could be in the same breath. When the last guests left and the snow had piled high against the door, I sat alone on the couch, wrapping paper still scattered on the floor. I looked at the silver paper for my parents' gift, torn and crumpled. The contrast made me want to cry and laugh all at once. 27 minutes. That's all it took for the story to change. Somewhere in Boston, my parents were probably drinking wine by a fire, proud of their moral walls. They had no idea that in rejecting my daughter, they had turned their backs on something far greater than money, a future wrapped in kindness, courage, and power. They thought their words would break us. Instead, they built the foundation of the story I would one day tell, how my daughter's worth was never defined by their ignorance, but by the love that chose her, and by the billion-dollar promise that arrived 27 minutes later. That night, after the last guest had gone, and the snow had quieted outside, the house felt heavy with silence. The kind of silence that follows a storm, thick, alive, almost sacred. Wrapping paper was still scattered across the floor, and half-melted candles flickered on the mantel. The air smelled like frosting and smoke from the fireplace. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop, the light from the screen casting a pale glow across my hands. Ava was asleep upstairs, her birthday crown forgotten on the nightstand. James was loading the dishwasher, humming a soft tune under his breath. Everything looked normal, but inside I felt changed. It wasn't just the cruelty of my parents' words, or even the shock of the billion-dollar email. It was something deeper. I had spent years trying to balance two worlds, the family I came from and the family I had built. That night, I realized I didn't need to balance them anymore. I just needed to choose. The cursor blinked in front of me as I began typing. The subject line was simple: about your black granddaughter. For a long moment, I stared at those words. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, my chest tight with a mix of anger and sadness. I didn't want revenge. I didn't even want an apology. What I wanted was peace, the kind that only comes when you stop waiting for people to love you right. So I wrote, Mom, Dad, we received your gift and your note. I read it twice to make sure I wasn't mistaken. I wish I could say I was surprised, but I wasn't. You've made your opinions clear for years, and now you've put them in writing for your granddaughter to see. You didn't just skip a birthday party. You rejected a child, a kind, bright, beautiful girl, because of the color of her skin. I don't know if you'll ever understand what that does to a person. I don't know if you care to, but I can tell you this. She doesn't need you. She has a family that loves her without conditions. And though it shouldn't matter, you might want to know that today, Ava became the legal heir to the Miller Family Trust, worth $1 billion. I'm telling you this not for shock, not for pride, but because I want you to see how small your hate is compared to her worth. You turned your backs on love, and in doing so, you turned your backs on the future. Until you can look at her and see her, not her color, not your prejudice, but her, this is goodbye. Sarah. I read the message once more. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. My whole body trembled as I clicked send. It was like shutting a door that had stayed open too long, letting in cold air I didn't even realize was freezing me. When I closed the laptop, James came to stand behind me, wrapping his arms around my shoulders. You did it, he murmured. His breath was warm against my neck. I had to, I said. For her. For me. He nodded. They don't deserve to know her, Sarah. She's light years beyond their small world. I smiled faintly. They'll find out one day. Maybe not about the money, but about who she becomes. That'll be enough. Later, I poured a small glass of red wine and walked upstairs. Ava's bedroom door was half open. The soft glow of her nightlight filled the room with gold. She was curled under her blanket, one arm draped over her teddy bear. Her braids fanned across the pillow like a crown. I sat beside her, brushing a stray curl from her forehead. Hey, birthday girl, I whispered, even though she couldn't hear me. You did good today. She stirred a little, murmuring something in her sleep that made me smile. I stayed there for a while, listening to her slow breathing, the quiet rhythm of peace. Downstairs, the snow kept falling outside the window, covering the street in silver light. The world looked clean again, untouched. For the first time in years, I felt the same way. Tomorrow, the world would keep moving. There would be school, work, bills, and all the small things that fill a life. But something had shifted inside me tonight. I had finally chosen my family, the one built from love, not blood. And as I turned off the light, I whispered to the darkness, "They'll never know. They'll never know that the little girl they rejected is an heir to $1 billion. But deep down, I knew it didn't matter. Because even without a single dollar, she was already priceless.